How to build a Blackgates Sweet Pea 5-inch gauge locomotive. This is part 2, dismantling the engine to take a closer look at the way the parts have been made. Some of the parts are okay and others are not. All will be revealed in the fullness of time. As I look at this locomotive chassis, I do get the impression that more than one person has worked on it. The following clip is from the previous episode, but it's such a useful thing to do, I thought I would put it under the general heading of Top Tip Time. And here's the tip. When dismantling an engine that you're not going to immediately put back together, it is quite important to make sure that you do not lose any of the parts. I'm going to be rebuilding this Sweet Pea for my friend James Evans, but I can't start the job yet. I have far too many jobs not finished. Next week I'm going to complete the Sweet William that sat on my bench, and that will be picked up on the 3rd of February 2024. That's been an interesting project, but it's been quite difficult too. On screen at the moment is a clip that once again I showed in the last episode. It's 2 food containers, which both have lids, and an open box of spanners and bits and pieces. I find it very useful to keep the spanners that I'm using on a particular job in their own special box, and that's the blue one on screen. This contains all the tools that I used whilst I was rebuilding the triple expansion engine. By doing it this way, it just speeds up the job. You've got the spanners instantly at hand and you don't have to look through your drawers of different size spanners. Back to the job, and the first thing to do is to remove this nut and bolt through the valve rod fork. This engine is very loosely fitted together, and this particular nut and bolt are not the right size for the hole in the lever or the valve rod fork. Everything else is very loosely held together with long split pins. These were removed one by one, and when I removed the bottom one I realised that this was a bush, not a washer. If you look carefully at this clip you can see that the wheel is pinned to the axle. I really hope the quartering is okay on this engine. And also the return crank is pinned in place, and I hope that that is in the right place too. The main thing I'm concerned about is the quartering. If the quartering is out, then there's a real problem, and I will have to backtrack to put this right, and that could involve making new wheels and axles. It's all good fun, and it would serve me right for buying a part-built model. Although most of what I see, I think is okay. I looked at all the parts of this engine whilst it was on my kitchen table, and when I was happy that it was okay, then the transaction went ahead. I couldn't see this part because it wasn't visible at the time. This is not very well made. The slot in it has just been done using a file, not a milling cutter. And now because the part is tapered, it's quite difficult to use a milling cutter. I'll probably end up filing it, but making it a bit squarer than you currently see it. Filing is an art and you need to practice it, and I've practiced it many times over the years, so I can file things fairly square. I'll show this later on in the series. As I mentioned earlier, I cannot start this job for quite a while, so it's just on the list of things to do. The die block fell out of the slot, and now I can have a closer look at the reach rod problem. The reach rod has to be bent in a very strange way in order to move this part of the valve gear back and forth to make the engine going forward and reverse. This is yet another thing that I need to check when I get the drawings from Blackgates Engineering next week. I'm also picking up a lot of parts that Blackgates supply for the Sweet Pea. A lot of them I won't need to use because I already have a rolling chassis, and the reason for buying this engine in the first place is just to speed up the job. I rebuilt a modified Simplex a while back, and that took a long time. I think the series went to about 205 episodes. And there was still a lot to do. I got fed up with it. I sold it fairly cheaply to a friend of mine because he just wanted it as an ornament, and it wasn't really finished. And I don't want this series to go the same way. Hello and welcome to How to Build a Blackgates Sweet Pea Locomotive, part 391. In this episode I will be nailing my hand to the bench just for something different to do. When I look at the statistics of my video viewing, I often see quite good numbers, and then as the series progresses, the numbers drop. And this is down to just the length of the series. Sometimes people get fed up, and indeed sometimes so do I, making the videos. One of the cylinders was only held on with 2 bolts, so I thought it would be a good idea to take that off first, and it's encouraging. This is quite well made. All of the mounting holes look very well tapped and slightly recessed, and also the exhaust port is threaded, which is always a good thing. Although a good friend of mine, the late Randy Blackburn, used to use an O-ring, so he didn't have to thread this part. He used a steam-grade silicone O-ring in a groove in a piece of thick-walled tube. This sealed the exhaust perfectly, and it was very easy to fit and remove. Something is puzzling me. Why is the inlet into the steam chest so close to the steam chest cover? Is it in the right place? I won't know until I see the drawing next week. The way that the steam pipes on a sweet pea go from the smoke box to the steam chest always looks a bit strange to me, and I don't think this is right. It's far too close to the steam chest cover. But I may be wrong, because the rest of this cylinder is very well made, and I don't think such a fundamental error could have occurred. I'll have to wait and see. That's it for this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.